Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Globetrottin ADs. Today, we're pleased to have some guests joining us from various parts of the globe. And today's topic, we'll be talking about virtual competitions for athletics and activities. So we're really happy to have Matt Lautenbach, who's the Athletics and Activities Director at Vientiane International School in Laos, as well as my colleague, long-term colleague and good buddy here from Budapest, the American School, our Student Life Coordinator, Middle School, High School Activities Coordinator, Marc Lavoie. So we're really happy to have you guys here. And I'll kick it over to Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for the intro, Matt. Matt and Marc, thanks for joining us. Before we get into virtual competitions, why don't you just take a second and give us a little bit of a profile. At least tell us where you're originally from and maybe how long you've been at your school you're at. But anything else is great as well. So, Matt, why don't you kick it off? You're from the farthest away.
Fair enough. This is my second year in Vientiane. Before that, I was in Beijing for 1 year at a startup school that didn't start up. It was a great opportunity to learn the inner workings of a school, but I was hired as athletics director, and through a series of situations and things outside of our control, we never were able to get our license and open up. So that was a 1 year adventure in school management. Before that, I have been in aquatics pretty much my entire career. I was the aquatics director at Cairo American College, and before that, I was head coach in the United States for a few years, and then I started the international school journey at the Western Academy of Beijing as aquatics director. Before that, most of my coaching happened in the U.S., and I was born and raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Awesome. Thanks. Never heard that before. Started a school that never started.
Never started. It was an incredible learning opportunity.
This is why we love international education, because you never know what's coming at you, right?
Yep.
Well, before I introduce myself, Nick and Matt, Nick and Fleming, I wanted to say how deeply honored I am to finally be invited. I'm joking. It's a great podcast. I've been a fan. I think it's so wonderful what the both of you guys are doing, and the fact that you're now expanding this into activities. You're thinking, I'm giving a plug to we're very excited about this online conference that you want to organize for students. I mean, the work that you've done with this, over the last year is amazing. And it's one of the things that we say to our students and our kids all the time is a little idea, if you see it through, can really do some great things. And that's what you guys have done with this. So, really congratulations on all the amazing guests and everything that you've been able to accomplish with this. So now I'm going to introduce myself. As Matt said, or Fleming said, I've been a colleague of his. Fleming, you've been here 13 years, right? Yeah, I have been here for 25 years in Budapest, Hungary. I still love it. I've been here since 1996. Most teachers get into the international game, to go from school to school every 4 or 5 years, and I can't seem to leave Budapest, Hungary. I absolutely love the school. I love working here. I still get psyched every single year when the school starts. So, again, really happy to be here. I've got a son who's 20, and I'm from Canada, and he actually is now studying at the Toronto Film School. So I can't believe he started at our school in 4th grade, and now he's graduated, and I'm still here.
Awesome. Thanks, Marc. Thanks for your words, and And yeah, we're excited to talk about some activities as well. We haven't got into there, but that's a big part of a lot of our jobs. But we're going to start with athletics, right? Our bread and butter. This fall, a lot of virtual competitions kind of popped up on a lot of our schools' radar, with cross country specifically. Yeah, I think schools across the world participated, right? Even if you could meet and run together like we did, or have kids run on their own and submit the times, it was a pretty cool thing. Was your school done anything with cross country?
We haven't. We run a pretty tight, small athletics program that's fitting for a school of our size. So we offer basketball, football, and volleyball as part of the Marissa League and the Mekong River International School Association League. And then we participate in swimming around the region. So we don't have a cross-country program. Okay. And we've been in such a fortunate position that our athletics program is largely running as normal. The piece that is just missing is that international travel and competition piece of it. So we have been fortunate that our practices have been able to go on as normal. But looking for that competition piece, we have tried to find some virtual competitions. And cross country and swimming lend itself a little bit better to that than those other three sports that we participate in. It's kind of hard to have a virtual volleyball match.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, that's why I thought maybe a school like yours that didn't have cross country would have, taken this, let's say, time that we're in to start one, because I've heard that around the world that, cross country numbers just went through the roof because that's something they could actually do.
Absolutely. Our climate also is not so conducive to a cross-country team.
What about in Budapest, Matt? Your numbers of cross-country go through the roof this year?
Yeah, we had really good attendance for both middle school and high school. I think middle school is one of the bigger years. I believe we had about 35 kids that were coming out, and it seemed like each week we were getting more kids that were coming out. Either they might have changed over from another sport, because tennis was highly subscribed as well. We had almost too many kids for that. So we had some kids who were training over, but we also had kids who maybe they hadn't figured out yet. New kids hadn't figured out the school yet, but it seemed like every week we were adding kids to the roster. And luckily we have a coach who's open-minded for that and was happy to take on. He just loves getting kids out there, running and being out there and being involved and taking advantage of the nature that's nearby. So yeah, it was great. And the high school numbers were solid too, and they had a very successful season getting to know the local environment here up in the woods.
You talked a lot about aquatics, Matt, and that's your background, and that's really why we wanted to have you on, is because you've already hosted a virtual swim competition, right?
We have. Yeah, it just finished up. We put an invitation out to as many schools as I had contact for, and just had a great response from around the world. Mm-hmm. Originally, I had probably 30 schools from nearly 20 countries that expressed some interest. And as we are seeing across the world, new government regulations kind of put a stop to some of that for schools. Mm-hmm. But basically what we did is that we sent out the shell of a meet for Meet Manager, and any school could do the races whenever they wanted, anytime in the month of November. They would send me the results and I would put them together, compile them. In the end, we had 16 schools, one club, and that came from 11 different countries that came together for this meet. So it was a great opportunity to just get some racing in and have that, feeling of competition without having to go through a 2-week quarantine on both ends, which just isn't plausible.
Yeah. Wow. And from where you are, that's the swim season, right? Would that be the end of your swim season or near the beginning?
We typically run all 3 seasons. We're taking the winter off this year in part because of COVID, but we're outdoors and it does get cold enough here that we saw a big drop in numbers last year. So it marked an end to our first season, and I've started to put together plans already for the one that will run during second semester, because what we heard from the schools in Europe and some of the schools that are just being able to come back into person is that there was a lot of interest around participating, but they just didn't have enough water time. So we're looking at the one for second semester, allowing schools basically to do it any time between January and May. And as long as they get the results, we'll be able to put them together towards the end of the year.
Yeah, that's ideal. Yeah, because for us here, we it was great to get it, but it was just a little bit out of sync with our season and not being really up and running with swimming yet. And then we've had issues of being the pool being open, then it was closed, and it opened back up, and now it's closed again, as well as the whole sports program being shut down for the moment. So unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to get into that first one.
And you have your own pool, right? I mean, you have a pool in your building. So, for us to go to a city pool was even harder, but
we're at the mercy of the Hungarian government. So, if they say we can't use the pool or we can't host any after school activities, which is what is a current case right now, then that's what we're doing.
Right. Well, now with
and that's what we found from a lot of schools from around the world, that some ISKL in Malaysia, they were fully in practice. They had their meet set up. They had their parents ready to run it, to get us everything. And the government came in and said that, sorry, it's back to online learning. You can't be off. So the one that we're hoping to get going in the second semester here, that we just want to give as much flexibility, understanding that especially in Europe, the schools don't have as much pool time as we have the luxury here in Asia, and that the seasons are different.
Right. As our swim season is really just starting in a normal year, I've heard of a couple European schools that are setting up a virtual meet. So Annie in Athens, who's a listener, and Kirby in Moscow. Do you have any tips for them as for us as Europe in general as we move into virtual swimming season?
What I learned when putting the results together, Meet Manager is a phenomenal tool, but it is still a whole lot of manual work. And so just give yourself a couple hours to get those results put together if you're using Meet Manager. But it's a great motivating tool for the kids, and get it out there. And I think that even in a normal year, it's something that possibly could stick around, in just the sense that, my experience in Cairo, we got really excited every year to go to ISST when we were part of that league, but that was essentially our only competition outside of Cairo. So to keep these virtual ones going, I think we can all look at the current situation now and realize that travel may not come back in quite the same way that it previously was. So this adds another element of competition and just kind of that benchmarking. Not that it's all about that, but a way of kind of seeing where we are without the hassle of arranging flights and hotel rooms. And for a swim team, when you're talking about multiple ages, here in Asia, there's schools with 80 to 100 kids on their swim team. So to get a block of hotel rooms and to get enough spaces in a meet to make that a meaningful experience for everyone, to be able to run a time trial meet at your own pool and then just compare it virtually, I think there's still going to be a place for that.
And I love the idea that you can do it in the beginning of the season as well. So that's always a hard time to organize a meet in international school, because you're just getting sorted, you're just getting organized. But if you can do it in-house, where you can have the coaches take care of the timing, you don't have to worry about getting the timing company and officials and all that, the usual work that goes into organizing a meet. This is one way it's a great touchstone for kids to get an idea of where they're at, especially in the beginning of the season. And they have another one later on, even if it's virtual. They've got somewhere to shoot. They got a number to shoot for to improve, get a new PR. So it's awesome that they get this
absolutely
competition.
And that's even if our conferences are back up and running, right? We could still submit our the ISST conference results and compare them to MESAC and all these other different conferences, right? But Matt, that's something you already started, right? internationalschoolaquatics.com. So did you know COVID was coming or what?
No, when I was in Cairo, I was just kind of curious. I knew that we performed really well in ISST, but I was kind of curious with my background in Asia, how we stood up against the other teams around the world. Mm-hmm. The idea for the virtual meet actually came from my early coaching career back in the US. And back in Michigan, we had a 3-site prelim meet where a bunch of swimmers got together at 3 different schools around the way. We brought the results together and then ran a final. Whoever qualified the final session was at a different site. So it was a way of us getting a whole lot more swimmers into a meet. Again, there's only so much time to run the heats and events. So to spread them out over 3 pools allowed for a much better competition. So that's where the idea for this came from. And again, makes it really straightforward, if not simple. But the idea for International School Aquatics was simply swimming is one of those sports where the parameters of the competition are exactly the same no matter where in the world you are. Right. A 25-meter pool is a 25-meter pool. So it lends itself really, really well to competition. Growing up with that aquatics background, Swimming World magazine always posted a mythical high school national champion in the United States and event champions for everything. So International School Aquatics came from that. It's the idea of crowning a mythical world champion in this sense, individual top 25 for all of the events. What made it difficult is that every conference runs slightly different events. So to pick and choose which of those events was difficult. The beauty of a virtual meet is that all of the coaches are sending their results to me. International School Aquatics, it was 100% manual entry. It was me looking through Meet Mobile and typing in the results from each conference meet. There's no way to get all of the great swims that happen around the world. So it was picking and choosing. It had to be a multi-country international league. So Singapore, for instance, has incredible local league. They have a ton of great swimming that happens there. But if it's schools just from Singapore, that meet wouldn't be included. If for UWC or Singapore American, their international league, those results would get included. So it was some cherry picking. There's not enough hours in my life for me to look through all of the results out there and manually enter them. But at the same time, it offered a great look at all of the great swimming that happens throughout the world. I guess it's 2 years ago now, but in 2019, the International School of Beijing was our mythical world champion. The American School in London was the female world champion. AIS Beijing was the male world champion, and AIS Beijing took the combined crown. Before that, UWC East had been the combined champion for 2 years. But kind of to answer one of the questions that you posed at the end of last time's podcast, swimmers are some of the most successful international school athletes out there. St. Mary's in Tokyo, they've had 4 different Olympians that have graduated from there in swimming. 2 brothers that represented Spain, Mokhtar Al-Yamani, who represented Yemen and went on to swim at the University of Michigan along with the Ortiz brothers. Miguel Molina, who represented the Philippines in 2 Olympic Games. Camille Chung represented AIS Beijing, and CAC has its own Olympian and world championship bronze medalist, Farida Osman, who graduated from CAC.
Wow.
So the swimmers have kind of been able... It's a sport that lends itself very well to the international school season and club training outside of that. So,
Matt, that's so true, because we don't have him on our swim team, but we have a young man in our school who has just made the Hungarian national senior team.
Awesome.
And you know that Hungary is a swimming power. And it's really weird because, there's really, apart from Lake Balaton in Hungary, there's really no water. But we're one of the top 10 swimming powers in the world. And We have a young man who's in the IB in grade 11, and he just made the swimming team with some pretty outstanding times. So, Fleming, we need to join this so that we can,
it's so many options that could be installed, which is great. Like I was thinking, it'd be kind of cool if you could have like every conference, right? They're champions. You form like an all-star team that could go up, compete with other regional organizations. Like we have a CISA All-Stars, stuff like that. That's one possibility that could come from this COVID situation, right? We have these virtual all-star meets, which is kind of cool. So
yeah. And I think they happen a little bit more in Asia. What I found, having worked both in the European sphere at CAC and then in Asia, is that with maybe the exception of CAC and maybe ASL, the major competitions tend to be situated in a single season, whereas in Asia, they truly are a year-round sport. So APAC and CSAC and IASIS has had an all-star meet in Bangkok. They've run one or two versions of it, I believe. So they've kind of done that where you're competing for your league instead of for your school, which is a really kind of cool bridge building idea as we're looking for ways for kids to connect across teams and conferences.
Matt, we've been lobbying our school administration for an aquatics director, and we're hoping that'll happen in the next 2-3 years. So if you ever decide to leave the luscious jungles of Laos, look us up.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think my wife would love to be in Hungary. So,
well, that's cool. It really is, like you said, something that you can compare because like cross country, obviously elevation and surface and all those things are so different, but swimming is easy, so to speak. So obviously I'll put your and have in a newsletter, but put your website there and encourage schools, especially in a normal year. When we have these competitions, maybe, all the ISST, all the European schools could get the results to you in an easy way somehow.
That'd be great.
And and then really take part. Yeah, it would be great.
Coach Evaluator is the premier coach evaluation software for schools and athletic organizations and preferred coach evaluation solution of the NIAAA and the Positive Coaching Alliance. The system is completely customizable with an always growing evaluation template library for athletic directors to reference. There are not only evaluations for ADs to use, but also self-evaluations and parent-player evaluations of coaches. Learn more about digitizing and simplifying your coach evaluation process by visiting www.coachevaluator.com. Mention Globetrottin ADs to receive a $200 discount on the yearly rate.
Kukri are a global multi-sport clothing brand specializing in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms for students of all standards and abilities. If you are frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your school's uniforms, then it's time to discuss an offering where every sport is available from softball to soccer for male and female athletes at rates to suit your budget. To find out how Kukri could elevate the apparel of your student athletes to a professional level, email the team at contact@kukrisports.com. A dedicated sales manager will offer you a quote today. Mention this ad and receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order. So let's shift our focus to academics a little bit. Another, I think, big feature for our kids as they're stuck either at home or in their own countries is to compete in the academic realm. And a few things are out now and happening. I think speech and debate, kind of some quiz games are out there. Marc, what are you up to in your role with the Budapest guys virtually?
Well, before I get into that, I want to really kind of share with you guys that the most important piece that we've been looking at here in Budapest is the wellness of all our stakeholders in the school, you know. So how are our students and teachers coping with, you know, hybrid learning, and how are they coping with, you know, distance learning? At the moment at our school, we have 2 divisions that are in school and 1 division that's outside of school. And it's been incredibly challenging. And honestly, you know, in my 25 years here at the school, I don't think I've ever seen staff members really feeling like they need to manage their energy very, very carefully. And that's why when it comes to activities and clubs, I've been very, very mindful of not adding anything extra to their plates. Yeah. Having said that, I am amazed at the resiliency of our staff and our kids. And I don't know, they've been digging into places that I didn't think they could. And they've been finding the will to adapt their clubs and activities to the current situation. And some of the things that are coming out of it are pretty extraordinary. Obviously, there are some clubs and activities that have stopped simply because they need to be done in person. For example, I'm thinking of something like band. It's just not going to work if you don't get musicians together in a big room. It would be pretty chaotic and a little bit hilarious to have, you know, several bands on Zoom trying to figure stuff out. But there are a number of activities and academic competitions that are slowly but surely starting to develop a product that we can actually use. And I think it's really early in its infancy. And we are being very careful and mindful with what we're choosing to join, because what I don't want is put the faculty who are sponsoring these clubs, such as speech and debate or knowledge bowl or math counts or robotics, in a situation where it's going to become so much work for them to try to figure out the online platform that it's really going to completely backfire on me, and it's not going to be, and on them, and it's not going to be a positive, healthy experience for the students. So we've been working a lot in the organization that we belong to, CISA, which stands for Central Eastern European Schools Association, at trying to develop really practical ways to be able to have online opportunities for our schools. And I'm relatively confident that a lot of these are going to be successful, but I'm also, my expectations are also as such that it's the first year we're doing this. And so it's not going to go perfectly. But having said that, it still needs to be organized in such a way that it makes it relatively easy for the participants to understand and take part of. So one of the things that I also think is happening, which I didn't think was going to happen, because, you know, let's face it, a lot of teachers love the travel component and they love to go somewhere else, but some of them are really enjoying you know, taking part in something online, and they're really seeing the value of it. And they're seeing that, especially in high school, it's really not interfering as much with the education of the kids. So we just participated in MUN, and it was, you know, does it replace an actual MUN assembly? Probably not. But it was, by all accounts, an outstanding event, and that the kids were very, very proud of. But it was incredibly difficult to organize and to scaffold. And I think that as we move forward with what's happening in the world right now, you're going to see these opportunities online, learn a great deal and maybe improve and get better and better and better. Another example I can tell you about is we have this thing called Knowledge Bowl, which is an academic competition. And I forget the name of the group we're going with. What's their name again? Anyways, we have this outstanding group, which is headed by a gentleman who actually was one of the top winners in Jeopardy. And he created this a few years ago and had approached us a couple years ago to see if we'd be interested in going with him. And it just so turns out that now he has a outstanding product that he's developed that is going to allow us to hold an academic competition. And what's really great about it is that he is willing to spend a lot of time training the coaches and training the participants so that everybody feels good and feels ready and feels like it's going to be something positive, healthy, and successful for them.
I believe it's the History Bowl. David Madden.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, David Madden, that's right. Real interesting guy. So, you know, one of the things that I was actually talking to Fleming about this morning is, you know, I don't honestly, I know I'm diverging a bit here, Nick, but I honestly don't think that we really know how different our schools are going to look like in a post-pandemic world. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah. I think that if we think that it's going to be business as usual as pre-pandemic, that I don't think that's going to happen. I think, of course, I think we're going to all want some form of travel because it's such an important part of the experience for our kids and for our faculty. Yeah. But I think that there's going to be less travel, and I think the travel is going to be very different. And I think the schools are going to be very different, and I think the protocols that we're going to use for health and safety and wellness are going to be much more stringent, even once the pandemic is over. Yeah. I think it's going to take a lot of work for us to convince our parent communities that it is absolutely safe to send their kids abroad. You know, I think these kinds of events happen where they inflict kind of an unconscious trauma on people, and people become extremely mindful and extremely in a bit fearful of everything. I see the fear here every day, just not with the students, but also with the faculty, you know, about social distancing and all that kind of stuff. And I think that in terms of activities, our world is going to look very different. And I would like to take that as an opportunity to make things even better. I think if we're going to use the word hybrid, if we're going to live in a hybrid world of traveling and better online options, because they will have the opportunity to have kind of tests and trial throughout the pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's tough, right? Because that travel piece, especially for a lot of our academic kids, is what we really want them to do. We want them to socialize. We want them to get out and you know, experience those things that the athletes experience, you know, often. So to have them just behind the computer even more will be tough. So I think we definitely want to push the travel when it's safe and possible again, you know, the in-person connections. But while we're at home, I think, like you said, the academic bowl type things are easier to do. I know that MISAC, the Middle East conference with schools in United Arab Emirates, Oman, India, and Qatar, they've had a big academic games thing happen the last few months. I wanted to know what the kids thought. So they've completed their season, I would say, and Marc, you talked a lot about overloading the faculty and the kids and screen time. So I wanted to know what the students thought of this. And Scott Hibbard, who's a friend of ours, an AD in Dubai, said that the kids were skeptical at the beginning, but they had 6 scrimmages and then the competition, and they loved it. He said it brought the school group closer together, and the ADs and coaches as well. So of course it didn't bring them closer to kids at the other schools, but as their own school group, at least it brought them together inside, and that was a big factor.
Absolutely. I think that there's another aspect of this that, it's kind of a yin and a yang here, because on one hand, if we provide more online opportunities for the students, that means more screen time, and they're already on the screen if they're distance learning practically all day. But on the other hand, to my surprise, what I've learned throughout this process is they need that. They want it because they need that social connection outside of class. They need to be able to feel like they're doing something fun on Zoom, and they're getting to learn something and do something and really just kind of communicate with their peers. And so it's that balance that we have to try to achieve in developing the activities in such a way that, they're going to be online, but, at the same time, we want to mitigate it a little bit. Yeah. So that, it doesn't take over their lives. For example, we don't want, a robotics group of kids to, meet online and spend hours trying to develop the robotics routine. That's not a healthy thing to do. But I'm just blown away. I didn't think this was going to happen. We have an all-time record of students signing up for activities here at our school. I mean, we have a very high degree of participation because the kids need it so badly. And quite frankly, that's why I'm very optimistic about the future, because I look at how resilient our community is and how they are able to adapt. I mean, every day, you guys know this in your school. You're going to walk in through the doors. You don't know what's going to happen on that day. Yeah. You don't know what emails you're going to get from the school director. You don't know what the situation is, who's going to be in and who's going to be out. And the kids have developed this ability to adapt on a dime. It blows my mind. So I just think that we really need to have what we preach to the kids, that growth mindset, which is, really encourage the kids to seize the opportunity and the moment to continue developing their skills, because the kids know that this is the only way to do this now. Yeah. They know this. Exactly. So I'm super thankful anyways for the people I work with and for their willingness, even though they're more tired than I've ever seen them tired. I'll stop talking now. I talk too much. Sorry.
You always talk a lot, Marc. That's okay.
I do.
Good. Matt, what in a school like yours, it's a bit smaller, I think, than both of ours. How's the academic side? Are you competing virtually in the things that you had before? New things?
Not all that much. Our activities program is rolling along like it normally does. As Marc talked about, our teachers and students are spread a little bit thinner than maybe they would be in a normal year. And we have some students that either have not been able to return to Laos or have had to leave for a variety of reasons. So we are still kind of doing a hybrid model. The vast majority of our students are here in person, but we still are offering online learning opportunities, which is requiring tapping into those stores of resilience from the teachers. We've had a few invitations for Model UN events, but they don't line up with our time zone, so they just practically don't make sense for where we are in the world. Yeah. MUN is the only academic activity that we have that we would travel for in a normal year.
Okay. Well, this might be something for you if these academic bowl things, continue. That's something where your kids can compete without leaving, right?
Absolutely. I've got a page of notes here of new opportunities that COVID may open up. As Marc talked about, that if travel does not return in a normal way, finding some of these pathways into new opportunities and a place for kids to develop new skills while respecting all of the time that they're spending in other ways. It's a huge opportunity that may come out of this.
Right. That's it. What about any other new things, not just the academic ones that we already have, now we're doing online, and the sports that we already have, but what about some brand new things that might come out of this? Are any of your schools doing something totally different that you haven't done before at all?
Well, yeah, we've had some wonderful online initiatives by our students, which have kind of blown me away. I also happen to be the CAS coordinator, and for those of you who don't know, listening to the podcast, what CAS stands for, it's a part of the IB, it's a core part of the IB, and it stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service. And it's really great for me to do the activities in CAS because they kind of go hand in hand. Because when a student is a member of a club in school or a team, they get to eventually claim that as a CAS experience. But what's been really amazing is we've had a number of students who have created some online initiatives that have blown my socks off. We actually have Fleming's son, who last year did a podcast on balancing, sporting and academics. I have some students who are doing cooking lessons and inviting other students to join them.
Okay.
I have a young man who just started something called STC, which is Student Teacher Cooperation, which is an online forum for students to give constructive feedback to teachers on what it is that they're doing. So there are all of these other things that are starting to grow organically in the community, and they're kind of filling these voids that other things that can't happen have left. Like another example is we just started, we were late in the game, but we're so happy. We have a student who lobbied our school to start a GSA group, a Gender and Sexuality Alliance. We have a Feminist for Future group. We have all kinds of really neat student clubs that were started by students. The students had to follow, certain protocols to make sure that the club would survive them. And what I mean by that is that it would survive them leaving the school, and that, the club could really go and keep on going from year to year. So it takes, at our school, on average, maybe 3 to 4 months to be able to create a club and go through all of the different protocols and meetings and people that they have to meet to convince us that this is something that we really need in our community.
Right.
But at the moment, it's really, I have a good problem because it's keeping up with all the really cool stuff that's going on that kids are doing.
That's amazing. We're just in that balance. We are normal enough that we haven't kind of pushed the bounds of things. We're trying to keep our things that we've had in the past going and have been very successful for that, and feel very fortunate that we are able to have that normal thing. But where it hurts us that little bit is that it kind of removes the incentive to innovate, it sounds like, in the ways that you've seen at your schools.
Yeah, I see that in our fall season started normally, where we ended up playing some games against local schools and clubs, and we didn't have to do anything different. We just basically ran the program with COVID protocols. And then, listening to other schools and all the innovative things that they're doing, I thought, wow, we're not doing any of that, but we're lucky enough to be able to do the normal things, right? So it's, it's good and bad. Like, wow, they're being really creative over there, and we don't have to be. But that's good. But
that's a tough thing to, it can be a tough thing to deal with from our jobs. I think you don't want to get caught up in that idea. You got to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
You do, you don't. But in these days and times, it could be trickier because somebody comes up with a really cool thing online, and you might have that pressure of thinking, oh, we got to do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many great things that are going down the pipeline that we would have not thought of joining in the past. And this is where I want to plug in the Globetrotting conference, the AD conference that you're putting together. I mean, I've never in my 25 years, I've not seen something like this offered to kids, where not only do they get the opportunity to innovate and give a workshop, but they can also, if they're not ready, they can be participants. And you've invited some wonderful speakers that are really going to bring something to them that they're going to be able to use. And all of this is going to happen online. And we didn't have this before. So this is another example of opportunities. And, you know, obviously schools have to look at their ability to seize on opportunities. You can't do everything. Right. But in our school, we go through this process. We look at an opportunity, we evaluate it. We see if there's some people that have the energy and well-being to take it on, and then we move forward from there. And so, you know, for example, we've already had a significant discussion with our administration about this conference. And so, you know, we're all in because we think that it's going to fill a huge need in our community that is just not there at the moment. And we hope that it survives the pandemic. You know, I mean, obviously you want to go through the first one and take it from there, but then we hope this is a kind of conference that will perhaps continue for a long time.
Yeah, and we think it can, right? Because we want to link the international schools around the world, regardless of what country you're in, right? Which is something you couldn't do even in a normal year. You know, your kids aren't going to fly all around the world for a one-day event.
They're not. And, you know, this is one of the great things that I heard Matt say about the swimming, about this initiative that you had, about wanting to see how you fare against swimmers from all around the world. Yeah. You know, I think that's the next logical step for a lot, is for us to not just connect in the region we are, but connect with schools from everywhere. And what is that going to look like? And this is the time to do it. This is the time to test all of these technologies and opportunities.
Well, this has been awesome. Thanks, guys, for joining us and bringing us new insights. I've been looking forward to this because, as you guys know, most of the time we're talking a lot about what's happening with international school sport programs, but we've been wanting to touch on activities, what's happening in our other parts of school life and student life. So I just want to thank you guys for joining us and sharing what's happening. And Matt, great to meet you and learn more about your meet and your swim meets and the virtual components. And we hope to see more of that later on with your website. That's internationalschoolaquatics.com. So we hope folks check that out and get involved with the international scene of international school swim meets. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, and thank you, and love having the chance to share ideas like this and to be inspired to see where things can go. So thank you for being a great conduit for that.
For sure.
You're welcome. Well, before we really sign off, though, let's you guys are both in different parts of the world and different stories. You know, Matt being there only a few years, and Marc living most of your life, still a young guy in Budapest. Tell us a little bit about your, the best things or your favorite things to do in your new homes. Matt, I don't know. Matt, you go first because Marc will talk us off the show, I'm sure.
So Vientiane is an incredible city to live in. It is probably not your first stop and probably shouldn't be your first stop if you are here as a tourist. Go to Luang Prabang if you are here as a tourist. But Vientiane is an incredibly livable city. One of the best things about it is certainly the school that I work for. It's a great place to work, and it's a real centerpiece of the community here. But Vientiane is great. Coming from Beijing and Cairo, there's zero traffic here. The food scene is incredibly good. That French influence allows us to have great bread and great wine, which is really all we need in the world. So good food, good wine, and you're never stuck in traffic.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Well, listen, one of the reasons I've been here so long is because of Budapest. I'm of course biased, but I think Budapest is one of the most beautiful cities in Europe. The beautiful Danube, the Parliament buildings, the food is really good, very rich, a little fattening. I put on some weight, but hey, I tell you, it's a magical place to live, and it's being here so long. I've seen it change from the post-communist era to a market economy, and of course, it struggles like any other place, but it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise a family. People here are absolutely wonderful. And I also love the fact that I am less than 200 kilometers. I can travel in 8 different directions and be in 8 different cultures and countries. So, for me, it's been an amazing ride, and I'm still looking forward to a few more years, God willing.
Cool.
I tried to keep it short.
Yeah, that was short. That was short.
Oh, and I want to say one last thing.
I don't know.
This is probably, I don't know if you guys know this, it's probably the only and first time in history that there's a podcast between someone from Vienna, Budapest, and Vientiane, Laos.
Yeah. Breaking records. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Breaking the glass ceiling.
That one may stand for a while, even.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty safe. Okay. Well, thanks again, guys, and all the best as we keep navigating this crazy school year.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having us.
Take care, guys. Thanks again.
See ya.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.